Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Accelerating Restoration Action through Youth and Women webinar. I am Faith Kilonzo, and I'll be your moderator for today. I'm really delighted that you're all here because we know that the inclusion of youth and women is very critical in the restoration movement. Therefore, we're calling for actors in the restoration space to ensure that there is youth and women engagement. And this webinar will focus on different models and approaches for women to be included. Secondly, youth and women need to be empowered to participate in and equitably benefit from restoration. Therefore, we will be showing a backbone of youth and women in restoration action, and we will be focusing on how to include our children in restoration so as to further children as a means of contributing to raising the next generation of restoration champions. We'll also address some challenges to the inclusion, specifically inadequate awareness, education, and capacity to engage in restoration. Some of the objectives for today will be to showcase the work of the Youth and Women Inclusion Restoration Action Group. We'll be launching the Youth and Women in Restoration Network. We'll also launch the capacity strengthening program for the youth, women, and faith actors in restoration. And we'll also be continuously advocating for transformative education to children to ensure intergenerational equity in the restoration space. This webinar has been organized by the Youth and Women Inclusion, specifically the Greening Africa program, GLFX Nairobi, Mount Masio, Spice Warriors Volunteers, ResNet Kenya, Greek COP, that is the Greener Communities Program, Laudato Si Movement, One Vision Kenya, Spring of the Arid and Semi-Arid Lands. This is our second webinar. We had a previous webinar on finance options, and this is a pre-conference, that's thematic webinar in the run-up to the Kenya National Landscape Restoration Scaling Conference 2022 that will be held on 24th and 25th of next month, November 2022. Our session today is divided into 4 segments. We'll start with presentation from speakers with key lessons on youth and women and children engagement, and then there they'll share the models, opportunities, challenges, and key lessons to be shared with actors in the restoration space. And then after each session, we'll be having a 5-minute question and answer. And that segment will focus on the launch of the Youth Restoration Network and capacity strengthening. And here we'll focus on recruitment of members into the youth network and signing up for the capacity strengthening program. At the end of the session, we'll have a breakout session. We'll have a maximum of 4 breakout sessions. And here we will be sharing our engagement strategies and our different insights on youth, children, and women inclusion. We'll be focusing on why children, youth, and women in restoration action is important. And we'd really love it if you would stay right to the end. And it's at this point that as we kickstart things off, I want to hear from you. Please share your name and the organization you're affiliated with in the chat box. Let us know your expectations for the session, and why do you think it's important to include children, youth, and women in restoration? Type up your answers in the chat box, and we will be reading some of those that will be posted. Over to you, Laura.
Yeah, thank you so much, Faith. I think I'll just take you through the chat. We're having a chat blast, and like what Faith was saying, we just need to write in the chat very quickly. Not write, just type it. Then before I give you the go ahead, then I'm going to give you that go ahead, and just tell us why you think it's important to involve youth and women in restoration and children in restoration. So kindly type that up, and then we'll give you the go ahead. Yeah, so kindly you're free to start typing in. Great. So Thank you, Dr. Petronelia. We can see that you're saying youth are our future generations, while women are in the center of the family. Fantastic. Then Peter has said that they have different gender needs and interest in restoration. Lovely. From Sports for Greener, Victor, yes. Liz has said that children and youth carry the legacy of generations to come. Women are the home drivers and will teach their children on the importance. Great. Edwin has said youths and women and children are the majority population and capable of influencing the mindset, but amazing through approaches such as performing arts and media. Great. So to have differing ideas, then we need to have, I think Joshua said, to have differing ideas and needs of both social groups in restoration processes. Then we have Samuel saying from Just Dig It, who said women play an active role in restoration. They need to be engaged and they should benefit from restoration marks. I think I'll just read one more. Just one more, the last one from Addis. Women and children tend to be disproportionately affected by the adverse effects of environmental degradation, so need to be at the front and center. Thank you so much, Addis, for that. So over to you, Faith. Thank you so much to everyone for joining and for sharing your input on why we need people to be involved. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing your insights, and thank you, Laura, for taking us through the chat blast. We are going to move on to our first session, and here we learn about what it takes to engage with women in restoration and how it can be done. And in this first session, the speakers will be sharing several lessons learned from the engagement with people in restoration, and especially women. And we have two speakers here. We shall start by getting an overview of the engagement of women from Teresia Otieno. So Teresia is the founder of Angaza Siaya Initiative and also of Kenya Youth in Forestry. Welcome, Teresia, and then we'll go to Ms. Cassandra.
Thank you very much, Faith. My name is Teresa Aoko. I am co-founder of Angaza Siaya Initiative and also planning team member of the Kenya Youth in Forestry Conference, which will take place in May 2023 from the 17th to 19th in Nairobi County. To begin with, Angaza Siaya Initiative is a CBO that was registered in 2018. We began way in 2016, but is legally recognized from 2018. We work in Siaya County, but have extended our experience and partnership in Homa Bay and Kisumu County. We are focused on community-based approaches to sustainable management of natural resources, and therefore our vision is to see to it that there is effective management of natural resources for sustainable livelihoods. This is because the community at the grassroots level is the one that feels the impacts of climate change firsthand. If we are able to manage natural resources sustainably, then we have continuity for our present and generations to come. We work with women and youth and children in schools, and our activities involve tree growing. For instance, in Kisumu County, we partnered with Kenya Forest Service to do the 10% to Wajibu Wetu tree planting campaign. We also do cleanups and capacity building, among others. Our activities in relation to restoration, as I've mentioned before, include tree growing. Why? Because we are focused on climate change resilience. And this especially is meant to enable us to sustain our livelihoods. Talking about the women we work with, they are at the center of climate change impacts. For instance, women are assigned the role of ensuring that food is put on the table. They process the food and make sure that it's consumable, and therefore rely 100% on fuel most of the time at the community level. This makes them vulnerable to impacts of climate change, especially with activities that involve cutting down of trees or deforestation, for instance. And this is driven by the high consumption of fuel wood for them to be able to put food on the table. So we also provide training strategies and skills for better natural resource management so that they're able to ensure that in as much as they rely on fuel, they are not subject to the impacts of climate change by taking better care of the environment. We enhance their capacity, therefore, on correct agricultural practices that shield them from extreme weather conditions such as drought and floods. We also develop and enable access to training materials. Those that are shared by county government, for instance, national government and other stakeholders on environment, biodiversity, and climate smart agriculture. So we use various approaches. Remember, the women you're working with are from around the age of 40 to 65. These are women who you have to use cooperative, interactive, and consultative methods to enable them to actively participate. So with this, we are able to build consensus building and enable them to be part and parcel of this process. We ensure that our messages are gender sensitive and age related. While it is very easy for you to be able to read a text message, in the village, this is not a guarantee for the women you work with. So you have to make this a message and communicate it to them in a way that they can easily understand. We provide opportunities to engage better in resources management in schools by enlisting the broad support of community organizations and partners. We also mobilize resources to support environmental and agricultural clubs. As you can see in this photo, we have women actively participating in the setting up of tree nurseries and production of tree seedlings. This is in Homa Bay County. So which models do you use? As I mentioned, that our process is very participatory and action-oriented. As you see, we are seated down and we are having a situational analysis in order to be able to design a project that will take care of the needs of this group of women. We train them as well on skill development, and especially because they form the bulk of our volunteers at the community level. We also operate in a facilitated and collaborative capacity because we see no need for duplication. So if there are other organizations working in the community, we are ready to network with them, participate in the activities, in the events, and be part of ours. We also have formed agricultural clubs and environmental clubs at the school and village levels. So these approaches enable us to integrate our community interventions and sustain them at the school level. So there are several challenges and opportunities. First, the challenge is when you're working with older women in the community, you have to take into consideration that they're widowed and most of them are actually taking care of orphans. So they have a lot of burden on their shoulders to take care of, and you need to be sensitive to these issues. They also experience land ownership challenges. Once they've been widowed, they may want to donate their piece of land to host a project. However, this sometimes is hampered because once they are widowed, the community does not seem to have them having a say in land ownership. They're also not involved a lot in environmental decision making. Quite a lot of the effort goes to the other population, and they are quite often marginalized. As they're taking care of orphans and widows, most of the time they're economically challenged. They need to find school fees, they need to put food on the table, and they need to ensure that their children and family members are well taken care of. So sometimes even shelter, basic shelter, is such a challenge. But there are several opportunities. Their commitment and involvement in tree nursery as a business keeps them going, and this enables them to commit towards restoration activities. Energy-saving GCOS technology also helps them cut down on fuel consumption and also on the rates at which they look for fuel wood. So these kind of opportunities enable them to be active agents in restoration. They also trust us to work with relevant authorities. Quite of the time, they see us very many times in the community. So they'll come and tell us, by the way, why don't you talk to maybe World Vision, for example, or county government, for example, and tell them that you are facing such and such challenges. So because they see us daily in the community, they trust that you're able to bring them forth to other networks that will be relevant. They also committed a lot towards climate mitigation interventions because they suffer the impacts firsthand. We have learned several lessons. First, support for funding in tree nurseries establishment as an AJ is very critical. As you can see, women in this photo are working on papyrus reeds as a form of income generating activities to produce materials to sell. So when you are going to do a tree nursery, ensure that you support them, because this is one way they're able to make money to support themselves. The collaborative and participatory approaches towards decision making enable them to be part and parcel of the process. Remember, they exist in groups. So savings enable women to flourish in environmental actions because it enables them to facilitate. If you have to go far, they are ready to use their savings to work together. Secondly, some interventions are environment friendly. However, they disadvantage them, especially when they're expensive. For example, solar lamps will be a good idea, but if you put the rates expensive, remember money is a problem, they'll not be able to sustain it. Sometimes there are also minimal interventions from county governments, further marginalizing them. This is a group of women, and you can see they're ready and willing to work and to cooperate. So key messages moving forward. One is, if you're going to involve this group of women, ensure that you lobby for their involvement in environmental governance, because their voice really matters and goes a long way. Also advocate for funding to support for tree nurseries, because this is where you'll find them most of the time. Build trustworthy relationships with them. Once they trust you, that is it. They will stick with you until the end. They are more reliable in tree growing most of the time because they are receptive and ready and willing to embrace climate change intervention. And also consider other interventions such as economic empowerment in order for them to fully participate in complementing restoration efforts. Thank you very much. I welcome you for questions, and also like our Facebook pages, Youth in Forestry, and Twitter pages, Youth in Forestry, to learn more as how we young people are engaging this group of women in restoration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Teresia, for speaking with us on the good efforts you're doing in Siaya, Kisumu, and for giving women opportunities to engage equitably in all dimensions of the restoration economy. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box. The chat moderators will pick them and share them to Teresia, and we'll have like a 5-minute question and answer session before we proceed to, we could proceed to Cassandra, and then we will take the questions in a 5-minute question and answer. So I'm welcoming Cassandra Claire Mwanza, who is the Assistant Marketing Officer at Effective IPM Association. Welcome, Cassandra.
Okay, thank you so much. Greetings, everyone. My name is Cassandra Claire Mwanza. I work with Effective IPM Association. We're based in Ruiru, Kenya. So Effective IPM Association is a research and capacity development membership organization where we promote integrated pest management and other sustainable development interventions to improve livelihoods by linking local challenges to global solutions. At Effective IPM, we pride ourselves in being a research institution, first of all, and based on the research we conduct on farmers, where we deal with farmers, we develop interventions that can help them to improve on their problems. Some of the restoration activities we engage in, including planting of fruit trees. At Effective IPM Association, we support farmers in restoration by donating fruit trees so that they may be able to restore their farmlands and enable them also to improve their livelihoods from the extra surplus in farming. Another restoration activity we engage in is training and capacity building of rural smallholder farmers, where the farmers that we engage with, mostly in Kiambu County, we encourage them to visit our demonstration farm and facilitate their learning in terms of getting practical skills on agroecology. We teach them on organic farming, integrated pest management, and soil health and management. Our approach is very hands-on, and the first one we use is actually on farm or adaptive research approach. We involve farmers in the process by understanding their problems. That's the first step in restoration. You understand the problem, and then we conduct trials of proposed remedies using our demonstration farms as the trial center, and we disseminate this knowledge back to the farmers through training. The model used for engagement is participatory. We believe that farmers have the knowledge, they have the knowledge on exactly what they are going through, and that is why we prefer to involve farmers through participatory and collaborative models. We engage with the farmers, we understand their problems, and after that, when we are aware of the issues affecting their development, we tailor solutions to solve these problems through our research. Also, we collaborate with other organizations, and some of them are like JQuat and GBIAC, where we have collaborated previously on research, which has helped farmers. The challenges and opportunities we have seen, our organization gives fruit trees to needy farming communities, which not only conserve the environment, but also improve their livelihoods long term. We believe that while there are many restoration activities and actions which can be taken, we have found that the ones that really are impactful are the ones that are based on long-term concepts. And that's why we encourage farmers to plant these trees, which not only improve the environment, but also improve their livelihood. Most activities we have noticed from our restoration activities, we have found out that most of the farmers around are usually older men and women with little youth action. That is a challenge to us as youth people. We are a vibrant population with great potential in restoration action. Therefore, we present an opportunity for more restoration action by actually involving ourselves in these initiatives and taking a bold step in leading restoration activities. From our activities, from our engagements with farmers, we have also found out that there exists knowledge gaps in the sector with little to no information available to the farmers. Therefore, that presents an opportunity for innovating on solutions which can bridge these knowledge gaps and present the farmers with the information they need. Lessons learned. We have learned that working hand in hand with the restoration actors in the restoration space, as opposed to modeling solutions and imposing them on farmers, is a more effective approach. So therefore, we advocate for restoration action to be built on participation with the stakeholders who are the restoration actors themselves. Secondly, we have found that collaborating with other restoration organizations breeds a far more wider impact as opposed to working alone. Therefore, we encourage more collaboration among all restoration actions to facilitate more engagement and more impact. Thirdly, restoration actions should be built on enforcing sustainability and self-reliance of the beneficiaries. We advocate that all restoration should be built on sustainability concepts, as restoration action that is not built on sustainability breeds a reliance and a dependence on donors. Therefore, we advocate for more action to be based on sustainable development principles and self-reliance. Moving forward, we advocate that youth and women's engagement in restoration action should be boosted and supported. And secondly, restoration organizations should integrate partner organizations to realize their goals. Thank you very much. At Effective IPM, we welcome your questions, and also you can follow us on Facebook at Effective IPM Association and find us on LinkedIn at Effective IPM Association. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the vibrant presentation, Cassandra. What I got from what you presented is women are the backbone of restoration action, but it's all in vain if there's no research to advise us on long-term sustainable and productive models of engaging them. Any questions to Cassandra or Teresia to be typed in the chat box, and the chat moderators will send them to Cassandra and Teresia, and then we'll be having a 5-minute question and answer, and then we'll proceed with our webinar.
Faith, we have 2 questions that I'd like to bring to your attention. There's someone who wants to know whether Angaza could extend the initiatives to Kericho County, and I've just seen someone in the chat asking whether if they can provide tree seedlings. So,
Teresia, if you would answer those questions kindly.
Okay, thank you very, very much for your question. Yes, as Angaza, we started as a community-based organization, and we intend to change to Angaza Kenya initiative. This in the near future will enable us to be able to work widely and broadly. In Kericho County, we could partner as well, come to your community, share with your experiences and ideas, and help you start off from where you are. So that is very much welcome, and we'll be glad to join you. The second question on tree seedlings. Yes, so for tree seedlings, most of this we partner with local organizations, and we also partner with Kenya Forest Service. We also partner with KEFRI, and we also partner with NEMA Kenya. At the county level, you'll be able to access these tree seedlings, and you'll also, if depending on how you engage in them, they could also train you and offer opportunities for you to be able to learn on how to go about it. Thank you.
Teresia, I have a question on my end. I am aware most of the partners you mentioned offer indigenous trees. Are they open to also providing fruit trees? Because I saw that is also a question that has arose in the chat box. Teresia?
Yes, thank you very much for those questions. Yes, depending on the type of trees that you need, you'll find whether it is indigenous or fruit trees. And also depending on the community you're working in and the needs that they have. For instance, in Siaya County, there are a lot of fruit trees and mango especially, but you find other fruit trees such as avocado are not so popular and are not so common. So if you're going to introduce fruit trees, you look at the community and you look at what are the type of fruit trees that they need and the type of fruit trees that work very best in that space. You could also make use of the resources that are available to be able to know which type of indigenous or fruit trees you want to plant. You can go to KEFRI app. KEFRI has a lot of resources on this, and using those apps, it can tell you precisely the tree you can plant in the environment that you're in, considering the climatic conditions and even the soil type that you are operating from. So make use of those available resources, which guide us a lot in our community activities.
Thank you, Teresia. Laura, any questions to Cassandra?
So we have a question from Jared Amata from KEFRI, and he wants to know how do you identify the existing knowledge gaps and how you ensure knowledge exchange, or rather intergenerational exchanges?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. That's a good question. So one of the way you can bridge the gap in knowledge is we can actually, as a youth person, we have realized that, as a young person, I've realized that most of the work that we do is actually available in a lot of workshops are being held to facilitate networking amongst restoration actors. Therefore, one of the ways you can bridge this is attending the workshops, and also the first step, the very best way to actually do something is to actually do it. So we also advise that most young people to just go out there. If you have if you see a knowledge gap around your community, you can go ahead and approach the community and actually propose the solutions that you have to the problems they're facing. And you'd be surprised that there's a lot of support for these kind of solutions. Thank you.
Laura, any more questions?
Yes, I think there are several questions coming up, but in the interest of time, I think we can just go ahead, but we can take one last one. There's a question from Hans Peter. What about youth? And in youth, you also need young men working together with young women. So do you have activities with young men and women together? So I think they can both answer it very fast.
Okay, yes, we do have activities for men. In fact, at Effective IPM Association, we actually encourage the participation of everyone regardless of their gender. And so you'd find that unfortunately, most of with the communities, the farming communities we work with, you find that most young men are not involved in the processes. So we encourage more participation in this. And yes, we are able to work with men, both men, young men and women, and also old in our initiatives. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that question. It's a very relevant question. Yes, we do work with young people. We, Angaza, are a group of young people who came together and saw the need in the community. And we engage with other young people in our community. However, as we've mentioned about women, even amongst young people, the issues of young men vis-a-vis young women are quite different. You find that they are not homogeneous in as much as they're youth, they're not homogeneous. Their needs are different. Quite often, like in my community, young men are entitled to a piece of land from their inheritance. For young women in the same community, this land either belongs to their husbands or belongs to their fathers. Therefore, if you're going to have them plant trees, they have to seek permission, you see. Whereas for the young men, they would directly do this themselves without needing to ask anyone for permission. So when you're engaging with them, you also look at those nitty-gritties in terms of the vulnerabilities that affect each of these in as much as they are a group of youth. So you need to consider as well the gender lens and look at young women in the perspective that they also have cause that they do at home. So you're calling them for an activity to do tree planting or even to generate tree seedlings. You have to consider at what time are they available in the community, what working hours are they free. This is also different from the young men in the community because they also have their activities and that a time that probably the young women will be available is not the same time that the young men will be available. So yes, we do engage both of them, but then look at them as not homogeneous, each having their unique needs and each having their unique approaches for them to actively participate in restoration activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresia. Thank you, Cassandra, our speakers for the first segment. And we are now going to proceed to our next segment. Frederica, we know I see your hand is up, but because of the interest of time, kindly type your grievances in the chat box and we'll get back to you. And I'm asking the speakers to kindly also share their contacts. Yeah, so our next session is going to be on children engagement. And we are going to have two speakers on the SEM. Our speakers will make a strong case for the involvement and share approaches for the involvement with children. Our first speaker is going to be Mr. Joseph Kirindo, who is the Director, Africa Goal Organization. And then our next speaker will be Tobias Odacha, who is the camp manager for Wildlife Direct. So over to you, Joseph.
Thank you. My name is Joseph Kirindo, as it has been said. Work with Africa Sports Organization. Africa Sports Organization is an non-governmental organization for working in Kenya, promoting climate change through sports. And we indulge in different activities using sports as our media of implementing our program. So we have two activities under two different thematic areas. We have what we call Green Army Environmental Club and Environmental Cup. Through these thematic areas, we engage in environment education using games, different games that are teaching kids in conserving the environment, planting trees. Most kids do learn when they play. So we engage in most of our training. Most of our learning takes place as a game. Now we use different approaches to identify the gaps that are within the community and how we can come in. So we have to take a need-based approach to help us know what are the gaps that the kids need to equip themselves in terms of information. In solving the problem, we have problem-solving approach where we engage the kids on how they can solve the problem existing in terms of environment conservation. And then we have more of our approaches is participatory approach where we involve everybody. As much as we play games, these games are designed by the kids and they have an input. So we involve the kids themselves, the teachers, because most of the time we work in schools. We involve the coaches, because most of the time we work with soccer clubs and we work with some mentors who are doing other programs outside soccer. So we engage their mentors in forming or designing the games. And then we have the welfare approach. Mostly our games we use games to educate children on environment. So where we are playing needs to be safe. So the welfare approach is kind of applied on our approaches to dealing with environmental, educating people on environment. We use a different model of you have to get information. So we tend to engage on research to help us equip ourselves with the community needs, the gaps that are there, how we need to approach them. We organize the community in ways of how we want to work with them. We work in groups. So that one help us organize them and handle the issues effectively. We deal mostly with education. So community education, passing the information to young people, so that because these are the people, we are just the holders of this environment, but the real owners are these kids because they are the people who are coming to own it in future. And then we try to, as much as possible, to engage other organizations in our program. So we work with partnership, we work with collaboration. Yes, there's anywhere you are, there are a lot of challenges that you meet, and there are a lot of opportunities. So one of our challenge is accessing the public schools. It has been very hard to access them because of the bureaucracy of the government. Put as a big hindrance in terms of accessing this institution. In terms of planting trees, most of the time, accessing the spaces, mostly in towns, it's very hard because the spaces that are there are made to be along the road, along the railway lines, and accessing these places are very challenging because still of the bureaucracy. Mostly in towns, people have tendency of developing everywhere. So there's no space for left for kids or any space that can people use as a recreational facility or recreational place that people can beautify. So that one alone, it's also a challenge and it's also an opportunity that we can venture into. Availability of resources, to an extent of implementing a program without a resource is very hard, and accessing these resources are very hard. As much as we might collaborate with other organizations, are what we are bringing on board enough to implement the program. The IC materials, the IC material for promotion and education of children is something that is not available totally for the kids, and it's something that we need to see how we can avail to the kids. The public notion on sports, people believe that people who are participating in sports are kind of, they are free, they're adult. So most of the parents don't want their kids to come out to participate, not knowing a kid that participates in sports gets a lot of knowledge depending on the modality being used in that area. Exploitation of other talents that are available within the community. We have not exploited all the talents as much as we would like to empower these people. We've not really fully exploit other talents. We can use athletics, we can use music, we can use poets. So those are avenues that we can really exploit in terms of educating children. There's an opportunity within the Federation to ensure that there is a committee that is responsible for social responsibility in the community. I think we can go to the next. Community participation and stakeholders' involvement is key in resource mobilization. So we need to really bring communities and other stakeholders so that we have full or enough resources for program. Community-based organizations have enriched network that needs to be exploited. These are the people that are directly linked with the community, so their resources in terms of connections are very important. We need to map stakeholders who we want to really work with and know their interest, know their strength, and know their weakness, so that we really give the community the best, that is, give the kids the best in terms of training. Donors should encourage and support community representatives. So as an organization, we don't need to go and implement a program without including the community itself. We need to have a representative, somebody that can speak for the community. You can proceed to the next. Emphasis on training and education of community members. It's very important because at the end of the day, we can train these kids, but if you don't train their mentors on what needs to be done, how they need to train these kids for sustainability purpose of the program, it will be very, the program might not be sustainable at the end of the year. Enable space for regular information and interaction. As much as we train the kids, we need to have a space where the kids can really come, ask a question, interact, and share their ideas in regards to the program of environment conservation. Reference material, just the way I talked about the issue of IC material, reference is also important. Where can kids get the material to refer to whenever they're doing maybe a research on environment conservation? Sources of funds is another the lesson that we took. Although you cannot do a program without funds. At the end of the day, you need it. Constant training for children, because children have a tendency of forgetting, so we need to keep on training them. Sport is the most natural way of engaging, but that it has not been fully utilized with the community, with the relevant, to pass different informations that we need to pass to the community. So it's an avenue that we fully need to venture into and fully utilize. No strategy, no future. So if we cannot avail a strategy, contribute to degradation. Nowadays, we tend to have a field everywhere, and by having a field everywhere, we are going to cut the trees to create the field. By that, we are also a contributor to environment degradation. Next. Thank you very much. Appreciate you listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph, for interacting with us and for sharing with us how you integrating well-being into your purposeful programs. Really very interesting to listen to and very exciting to see how we are going to further that. Next in our speaker list is going to be Tobias Odacha.
I'm Tobias Odacha, the camp manager at the Wale Forest Field Lab, which is located south of Nairobi National Park. And so Wildlife Direct is a Kenyan-based conservation organization, which was started in 2004. And our programs mostly, our work mostly, I can say, is focused on two approaches, which is through campaigns, such as one of the flagship campaigns that is widely known as the Wale for the Hands Over Elephant campaign. And then our work is categorized into three different programs currently. We have the legal program, which does, next slide. Yeah, so in 2021, we did the first restoration project through the Wale Forest Clubs, which we were targeting public primary schools, because why were we focusing on children? That's like the approach we were doing. And we were like, children, they're open. And also that was last year. This project, the Kids Restoring Nature Challenge project, we launched it last year on World Environment Day with a focus on creating space for children to also be part of the restoration efforts. And the reason why we're doing this is because we noticed that the children were they were open. Like it's not like they didn't know the environmental challenges in their schools or in their communities. We wanted children to lead projects, like we wanted them to have a space in the restoration efforts, because we believe that children are able to make a difference. Every child can make a difference when given that chance. So children are open, they're curious to come up with very creative ideas, and they're innocent. And part of the activities that we did with children is organizing for trips, camping expeditions. And we were noticing that just having exposure to nature, maybe exposing them to different environments, was improving their cognitive restoration, maybe cognitive thoughts. They were able to realize that this environment is different from the environment in our school. Maybe our community is degraded. And so, but they lack the agency to make or support a difference in their areas. So we wanted to support, and the way we wanted to do this is by providing mini grants, micro grants. Next slide. And so we provided a challenge in which you are going to support schools through micro grants, because that was one of the ways the teachers told us they are not in a position to run projects in their schools because they don't have maybe funding to run their projects. And so you can see this is one of the schools that won the challenge, Ngwesu Primary School in Kajiado. After the first picture in the slide is of the school towards the gate. You can see it's not as beautiful. And then the second picture, you can see it's a bit decorated with tiles that are colored and flowers on them. Yeah, and then you can see beehives as well. So these children, they noticed that there were no bees. The insects they used to see before are no longer there. And so they started a pollinator garden, and the bees the insects had disappeared mostly from the pollution, from lots of spraying. There are lots of farming, people are using chemicals to grow potted tomatoes around there. So most of the insects have disappeared. And they started a pollinator garden. They put beehives. They did not only plant flowers, but then they planted trees as well. And most of the indigenous trees they planted there, they had planted before, were helping to ensure this pollinator garden was a success. And then the next school, next slide. This is Ilchlal Primary School. They also, from challenges such as deforestation around their school, it's also in Kajiado. Kiltilal school, the children noticed that they were losing trees around their school because their school is not fenced, and even their communities. Most of the people there use firewood, and people are cutting most of the indigenous trees. And so they wanted to, you can see how bare that land is. They wanted to plant trees. So first, the project helped them through the microgrant. They were able to set up a fence, which will enable the trees to grow because their families, maybe their parents also bring in cattle, goats mostly, into the school to destroy the trees they tried to plant before. And the children really supported this. They could import soil and manure from their homes. And this ensured through them, they ensured that through ownership of the project, they ensured that the project succeeded. Next slide. The challenges. One of the challenges that we had was that microgrants to school was something new, and teachers needed guidance. And this was like, but we managed to do it. We did, because it was mostly during, we had to travel to the schools, we had to organize for like a meeting with the teachers and guided them on how to manage the finances as well. And then school financial management systems caused delay in start and maybe running of some projects because they had to be like a board. They didn't have like a proper accounts. Like all the money to the school was going to one account. And so it being public schools, they really need, it was a process for them to be able to access to the club patrons, to access this funding, maybe on time, maybe because you find maybe it's a rainy season, the rains are about to be over, and they need to finish up or start their projects. And through guidance and maybe just patience, we were able to understand that for this, that is for now the second grant that we gave this year. So we realized that schools also, for them to be able to run maybe projects in which they're being funded, there's need for guidance in how to have proper financial management systems. Next slide. Then opportunities, realize that schools can act as focal points for restoration efforts in the communities, in managing local, supporting and managing local restoration efforts in communities. And lessons learned, we learned that when children are given opportunities to participate and own projects, there's that participate from idea generation to project implementation. It gives them ownership and they're able to ensure sustainability or maybe ensure that these projects come to become a success. And then we also learned that when schools are supported through microgrants, it boosts the response to ensuring success of local environmental challenges. And then next slide, we also learned that when children do such projects in their schools, they share them. By sharing them, it means that they go back to their homes, to wherever they are, and they do these projects there as well. They encourage their parents to stop stop contributing to environmental damage. Maybe if the parents are cutting trees or maybe burning charcoal, they act as advocates to stop continuation of environmental degradation. And then engaging children promotes sustainability and ownership. So children grow up knowing the right things to do, and by owning it, they ensure success. And when they become adults, they're able to also continue with such amazing work. Next slide. The key message we can say is that I had is every child can make a difference for nature. Yeah, thank you. So I didn't put the much information, but you can follow Wildlife Direct in all social media, maybe Facebook, all Wildlife Direct. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tobias. Thank you very much. That was such a catchy presentation. And
Yep.
The key message for today is every child can make a difference to nature. I hope that none of us is going to forget that. We are going to move on to the question and answer for this segment. I can see very many questions coming in for you, Joseph, and I'm going to read some of them to you. first people asking you to share your contacts. Kindly do that in the Google Docs. And people are asking, are the games that you're using accessible everywhere, like at home and easy for family to support their kids, please? And another one is saying that football fields in Kenya don't have grass, or football players destroy grass. What are you doing to solve this issue, since a lot of the fields lack vegetation? And then that last question is, are you engaging with the county and national government departments on sports to ensure maximum impact? Joseph, did you get my questions, or I could repeat?
Joseph left. He's no longer in the meeting. So maybe you can direct the questions to Tobias.
Tobias, some questions people are thanking you for the great knowledge you've just shared and for the perfect work you're doing in the communities and schools. And they're asking if you also visit wildlife and environmental clubs in universities. And what is your advice on organizations that want to venture in beehives in schools? Is it safe? Those are the two questions that you have.
Yeah, so yes, we work with both primary schools, mostly public primary schools, and university clubs as well, mostly through field and outdoor learning, environmental education. That is for primary schools through the clubs. So yes, there are opportunities mostly with the university clubs in which we engage them in fun, mostly citizen science activities. Like this weekend, we'll be engaging university clubs through KIWESA, the Kenya Inter-University Environmental Clubs Students Association, in the Great Southern BioBlitz activity, in which the students will learn how to support and contribute to science through use of iNaturalist app, in which they'll be going out, documenting species or biodiversity around their schools and communities. We also work with the university students and also children in public primary schools at the Wildlife Forest Field Lab where I am based. It's always open from Monday to Saturday. So it's the first children's park, because it's an open area. There's quite a number of wildlife that visit. So children come here, we engage them using modules, which we work in hand with university students in creating. And we also work with university students to visit the schools and just engage the clubs.
Okay, and what would be your advice to organizations that want to incorporate beehives in their activities in schools? How has it been with you previously?
So for beehives in schools, I'll say that it depends with the size of the school, and then it depends with children engagement. When children of course there are risks involved, mostly with maybe some, children they're curious, and some might just like causing trouble and might go to the school, to the beehive, and decide to stone it when the other children are playing, and that might cause a lot of risks. So for this school, it has like a very big piece of land, 30 acres, and so they did it far away from where children mostly play. And the club, due to the fact that the children were the ones like leading all this, they were able to ensure that we didn't hear of a risk, but then advise that people take as much precaution, risk assessments, mostly do a very thorough risk assessment before starting such beehive projects in schools, because the risk when it happens, it might be very costly. Also, because it's a school environment and anything can happen. But when children own it, they'll always be cautious enough.
Perfect. Thank you, Tobias. Any more questions, put in the chat box and we'll be answering them in the Google Docs form. And we're going to proceed to share a video on some of the success stories of children and youth engagement.
As a member of the Wildlife Warriors Club, my name is David Livingstone. I'm 11 years of age. I am in Class 6 East in Iltilal Primary School. I am the Prime Minister of the Wildlife Warriors in Iltilal School. Our project is to plant trees in order to reduce climate change, because trees bring rain and rain is water and water is life. Also, I learned about elephants that they have many similarities to humans, like they can live for about 70 years of age, just like we humans. And also, they help in dispersal of seeds, and that helps also in climate change because the seeds grow into trees, and trees reduce climate change. As also, we won 100,000 in a competition about conserving the wildlife. We planted trees. Also, we fenced our shamba, and also we planted. We made a different section for vegetables. Our school also plans to use the money to plant the other trees around the surrounding, so that it can also reduce the climate change. We also plan to be planting trees at home and educate our parents not to keep on poaching, because they poach a lot and they kill lions as a tradition. They kill giraffes and gazelles for meat, and they kill elephants and leopards just for security. So I'd like everyone who is listening to me to conserve the environment, keep safe, and may God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
I am called upon to not contribute to pollution or to poaching. I hope everybody saw how amazing that video was. And we are looking forward to bringing governments and schools to stop the same in the restoration sector. That was really good. We are going to proceed to our third segment. And I'm calling upon Laura, and Laura will be sharing insights from the Regreening Africa program and how they engage in youth. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you so much, Faith. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to share briefly the experiences from the Regreening Africa program with regards to youth engagement. So I can start with a brief introduction. So basically, I can introduce myself. My name is Laura Mkwana, and I work under the Regreening Africa program. And the Regreening Africa program is basically a program which is coming to its end, but I would describe it as a very ambitious program, 5-year program that seeks to reverse land degradation in Africa. And it has a quite ambitious target of working with 500,000 households across 1 million, working with them to restore 1 million hectares in 8 countries. So those are the countries that Regreening is working in. There's some in East Africa, that's Kenya, Ethiopia, Somaliland, and Rwanda, and we have some in West Africa, Ghana, Mali, Senegal, and Niger. So when it comes to youth engagement, the program has used several approaches, a variety of approaches. So it has, the program has used capacity building of youth using technologies such as the Regreening Africa app, focusing on capacity building. The program has also explored learning exchanges, taking youths to various having exchange visits and having workshops to educate the youth. There's also been that option of restoring value chains and restoration, because there's this whole idea of green jobs, which is really important. So involving them and building the capacity in this. Then they've also been engaged in nursery establishment and management. That's an income generating activity, and supporting the groups, youth groups that are promoting land restoration. And lastly, using sports as a tool or an approach to involve youth in farmer managed natural regeneration, FMNR, and tree planting. And that has been done here in Kenya, that has been done with Trees for Gold, and in West Africa with FMNR. So next slide, please. So here's just a picture of the founder of Tree of Gold, how the organization Trees for Gold basically uses sports to promote tree planting in schools, and they establish the clubs in the schools which continue to take care of the trees. Next slide, please. So in terms of the approaches, I think I've already mentioned them, but one of the main approaches that are used is organizing sports tournaments These are basically, if I can just take a step back and just summarize what's in this slide, these are various approaches that the program uses to engage youth in restoration. So one of them is organizing sports tournaments and sponsoring them. And here you have these teams, promoting that whole message of restoration, organizing art exhibitions and talent shows, organizing field trips and exchange visits, and then partnering with training experts and religious leaders to educate communities and raise the awareness of the importance of engaging youth and the importance of now things that addressing challenges such as land access to youth. And then capacity, again, I've mentioned before, through trainings and information, also the provision of tree seedlings, then sharing tree planting manuals to pupils. There's a school, the program has developed a tree planting guide for schools. So that's a way of building the capacity of young people or children to be able to engage in restoration in the right way, plant trees in the right way, because as we know, it's not all about tree planting. You have to plant the right tree in the right place and in the right time, even at the right time. Next slide, please. So this is just a continuation. These are just some of the success stories of other things that the program has done. So for example, in Elgeyo Marakwet in Kenya, the program has supported the establishment of a cypress woodlot. There's also the school tree establishment for school environmental clubs where they earn an income from selling fruits. And of course, there's the whole aspect of food security and improved nutrition. Then there's the establishment of tree classrooms in schools, which has been done in Homa Bay and Migori, where students are learning under the trees. And then the establishment of woodlots for fuel wood in schools, then introducing energy saving initiatives and supporting, like I mentioned before, the soccer tournaments, and supporting the soccer tournaments with youth, and also using the CFAs, working with the CFAs to donate tree seedlings that can be given to the winning teams. Next slide, please. So in terms of challenges, I would say the main challenges have been now the fact that it's hardly mentioned, the engagement of youth. What is being done is hardly mentioned in most of these initiatives. So there's that, it's not mentioned in mainstream media. So youth have been, they're already doing a lot when it comes to climate change mitigation, restoring the environment, but then that's not mentioned in mainstream media. And of course, I think some presenters have also alluded to the fact that land tenure rights is an issue. A lot of youth are not able to access land, yes, maybe through their parents, but then a lot of youth do not own land. But despite all that, despite all those challenges, I would say opportunities that we have observed in the program through our engagement in the various initiatives is that, the use of value chains is a great avenue that can be explored. And of course, it's great because it provides income, and that's something, that is really important when it comes to restoration. Restoration has to be linked to income generation. Then, the sustainability of many projects highly depends on innovative ideas. And the great thing about youth, we are very innovative. So that's an opportunity that can be tapped into. If, of course, the two main opportunities, if I can summarize, is now just having income generation active initiatives through the value chains, the various value chains. You can do the fruit trees, the avocado, you can do beekeeping. There are several things that can be done, tree-based value chains that can be done. So that's an opportunity. And lastly, now, just harnessing on the innovative power of the youth. Next slide, please. So in terms of the lessons learned, so when it comes to overcoming all these barriers that we have mentioned and catalyzing on the youth and leveraging on the innovativeness of the youth and even the number of the youth, because here in Africa, and that's true, even here in Kenya, the youth make up majority of the population. We need to have meaningful partnerships between the youth and the state and local actors, all actors at various levels. It's not just tokenism, just including youth for the sake, not just having a project or an initiative where you don't involve them in the process and you just put them there so that it can be said that you involved youth. Then also in engaging them in the project development, then recognizing the youth champions, recognizing what they're doing, and that will really encourage them to continue and other people to also engage in restoration. And then ensuring that they have access to knowledge and technology. And that's why you've seen from the examples I've given before, how Regreening engages in capacity building on restoration monitoring through the Regreening Africa app, training them on other things as well. So that's a really important training, creating manuals, for example, on tree planting, so that tree planting can be done in the right way, or rather tree growing, because I know we've moved from tree planting to tree growing. And then ensuring that restoration is linked to income generation, and that can be done really well through value chains. So lastly, the key message is moving forward are this. So we need to enhance or promote the youth involvement in decision making, and this requires that we put in place policies that support their participation. We need to ensure that at the end of the day, they understand these planning processes. Like in Kenya, we have the County Integrated Development Plan process, where they go through a participatory approach where the public can give comments. So it's important to build the capacity of the youth to be able to understand these processes when they happen and how they can be involved, how they can give their input. And then we need to introduce the IGAs, alternative nature-based livelihood opportunities, which can be done really well through the value chains. We can also have things like fish farming, just introducing it, because one of the major reasons for land degradation is now the lack of income or poverty. Then ensuring equal benefit sharing mechanisms, and I think this can go to government agencies. Just if youth are involved, they should also, and this applies to all community members, whether it's youth or it's women or older men. So it's just important to involve all of them and ensure that they benefit, so that they can have an incentive to continue engaging in restoration and conserving these natural resources. Then we need to examine our land tenure systems. We need to enhance the access and management rights of women and youth. And we also need to capitalize, here we have spoken a lot on how we can engage with youth, how we can do that. But here it's also important for youth and women, and also children to some extent, but mainly youth and women who are involved in restoration, to showcase what they're doing using social media. That's a great avenue to showcase what they're doing, and that way they'll be able to access more funding. Then so I think this is a message to now financial institutions and banks and the like. They need to adjust. Then they need to be more cognizant of the needs of youth and women when it comes to accessing finance and the loans and maybe the grants, and make it more suitable to their needs. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Laura, and sorry for the inconveniences. We are now going to move into our different breakout rooms, and we will discuss the questions that will be posted there.
So, Faith?
Yes.
Okay, so you can take them through these segments.
Just a minute, please. I see, Laura, you have some questions. If you'd answer those before we proceed.
Okay, sure. No problem.
I'll read 3. The rest you can answer in the docs. Most of them are comments, actually. We have one asking for assistance from eCraft and many other organizations in marketing. They are indigenous, exotic, and bamboo ready to plant trees. And we have another one. There's somebody asking what you're doing towards ensuring water availability. And another person is also asking on the same, because you mentioned about football, what are you doing to tackle this issue of lack of vegetation in these fields?
Thanks a lot, Faith. Maybe I can start with the first question about how marketing. their products. So I think it's important to note that through the Regreening Africa app, there's a module on tree nursery. If you have a tree nursery, you can be able to put it there, and that if anyone has access to the app, which can be easily downloaded on the App Store, we'll post the link to that, as well as the link to other resources like the Tree School Planting Guide and the insights on gender, how to involve youth, how to involve women in restoration. We'll post that in the chat. But through that app, that's one avenue of marketing, because when you have that, anyone, you can show someone, through that app, you can be able to show anyone. When you log into this app, you can be able to see my project. So that's one thing that you're working on, building the capacity of youth to be able to monitor and to be able to document what they're doing. And quite soon, you'll hear from us. We're organizing trainings on the app, and now we want to use that as an avenue for them to be able to market what they're doing, the tree nurseries, their restoration efforts, and document them to other actors like private sector actors. So that's something we're really, really exploring at the moment, how that can be done, but you'll soon hear about that. Yeah. And the other questions, what we're doing with the Trees for Gold, we kind of, the idea is, apart from now playing football, they do plant trees, and the children, the clubs that are set up in the various schools, and they actually take care of this seed, the trees planted. So it's tree growing. So apart from playing, having the football tournaments, they do plant trees, and they do grow trees, and they take care of them. So that's the aspect of sports here is just being used as an avenue to communicate it. So for every tree, I think that's there's a certain number of trees that are planted for every tournament.
Okay. Thank you so much, Laura, for answering that. We are now going to break into the breakout rooms. Some etiquette there, please raise your hand when you want to speak, and also mute your microphone so that you can have better engagements. Laura, if we could confirm, are we going to have 4 or 5 breakout rooms?
We're having 5.
Okay, so we are going to be in 5 breakout rooms. We have people will be taking notes during the meeting, and each breakout room will have a question. I'll read out the questions to all of you so that you can be, you could know what you're tackling in your respective breakout rooms. So the first breakout room will be tackling what activities can be used for the engagement or involvement of A, youth, B, women, C, children in restoration. I'll repeat, what activities can be used for the engagement or involvement of A, youth, B, women, C, children in restoration. The second group will be answering what activities they're doing to engage youth, women, and children in restoration. Some guiding questions are, what activities you're using to already continue what you're doing in restoration. The third group breakout room will focus on what approaches they think can be used to mobilize youth, women, children to participate in restoration. What approaches are you using, or what approaches have you borrowed from other people that we can have build insights from? The fourth breakout room will be handling what challenges youth, women, and children are facing in restoration. I think that's what we've been focusing on, but we want to hear from you what are some of the challenges that youth, women, and children involved in restoration are facing. What are the similarities? What are the differences and the problems? Because we all have different issues. And the fifth breakout room will be answering the opportunities for youth, women, and children involvement in restorations. What are the opportunities for youth in restoration, and what's next in the involvement moving forward? So you will be put into your different breakout rooms. and the questions will also be posted in the chat box there. So I'm really wishing you fruitful deliberations in the breakout rooms, and see you back here as we share what we discussed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faith. I think it's important to note that people have the opportunity to pick the breakout room that they'd like. And I think on that note, I need to share how they can do that. So on the last slide, this is how you join the breakout room. You'll see that that sign at the end with the breakouts, the 4 dots, especially if you're using a computer. And then, or if you're using a phone, when you go to, there are 3 small dots there, you can be able to see the breakout rooms. So I'm going to launch the rooms in a few, and then we try to summarize them because they could not fit. So the first one corresponds to question 1, the second one corresponds to question 2, and the same. So let me launch them, and then you will be able to select which room you want to join. Yeah.
Thank you,
And
Laura.
if you have an issue, you can just let me know. Yeah, I'll broadcast all the questions, no problem. So you can pick which group. Yeah. Okay, fine. Yes. No, there's some interference coming in, so I just I was requesting them to mute themselves. Okay, fine. I've identified them. No, go ahead.
Yes, Laura.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, there was some noise. Yeah.
I know my English is not is poor.
No, it's okay.
I would like to say that we need to apply what you are. What you are discussing is very interesting for us here. If we can get some brochures or via email or some planning that can help us to improve our capacity to spread this idea, your initiative. We want to spread it in the DRC, in the South Kivu.
Kindly share with me in the chat your email address. I can forward you some resources and we can continue talking.
Yes, yes. I think you are in Kenya.
I'm in Nairobi.
Nairobi, yes. I was following the presentation of the children, and I was very, very blessed with what they are talking about for reforestation, restoring the forests, and regreening. That is the term you use, regreening.
Regreening Africa program.
Africa program. It is very, very interesting. I see that in Kenya, the children understand what is the interest of caring of the creation, and especially the trees. And it is very, very good. I want to say thank you for this forum, and I think we'll keep in touch for the next program of forum. I think. I don't know if you understand me. Hello. Hello, Laura.
Oh, sorry. I was talking and I didn't realize that I was muted.
Okay.
I was saying that thank you so much for joining, and kindly share your email address in the chat so that we can continue talking.
Okay. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you so
Laura.
much.
I think we'll continue to be in touch via email.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody. Let's proceed. I hope you had a good time interacting in your different breakout sessions. We are now going to be sharing what we discussed, and we are going to start with group number 1. Kindly, the note taker, to share with us what you discussed.
Perhaps they could raise their hand so that I can unmute them.
Okay.
Whoever is going to be presenting, yeah. Faith, perhaps you can move on to group 2 and then we'll come back to group 1.
Okay, the group that was group 2 was focusing on the activities they are using for engagement of women, youth, and children. If you would kindly raise your hand and then would unmute you so that you proceed. It's Teresa Tieno. Kindly unmute her, Laura.
Thank you very much. Our team had quite some elaborate explanations on what they're doing, and we've had a few members share. We had Samuel from Just Dig It, which is based in the Netherlands, but also with offices in Kenya. They're working on grass seed buds and for restoration, and these are produced by women. And once the women produce this, Just Dig It takes it up and sells it. So in this way, they are contributing towards restoration as not only restoration, but also as an income generating activity. So these groups of women receive the hay seeds, and then they take care of this, and they're able to distribute it and sell it. They also participate in restoration through rainwater harvest activities. The activities are found in the South Rift of Magadi, Amboseli, Mount Kilimanjaro, and some of their grass seeds they produce is the species of Maasai lovegrass. And they partner with institutions such as Kalro Kiboko. Then we had Kerara Elkana from South Sudan, who also shared with us how they engage women groups in fruit crop production, especially those that are planted in their gardens. And these trees involve oranges, mangoes, and avocados. But because of the challenges in their context, sometimes they find it very hard to sell the fruits, poor roads, insecurity, and sometimes low market. So these are used for local consumption. Joy from Uganda also shared with us how they have the program called Junior Land Care Program, where they do land care innovations. They work with children in schools to grow vegetables in their gardens in order to supplement their nutrition demands. In the same space, they are involved in tree planting in their school compounds, such as avocado fruits, guava for fruit trees, and they are also plant indigenous trees for shades. And other than that, they make it fun for these children because they establish nurseries where these children actually sell the seedlings to their parents in order to scale their innovations. They also have works and dramas, essays and competitions, which the children are always excited and ready to participate in. So that's the way they make conservation very interesting for them. Then we also have David Wakogu from Friends of Ondiri Wetlands in Kenya, who celebrated the World Wetlands Day, and they have planted over 10,000 indigenous trees. Can you imagine that? Yes. They also have an initiative called the Trees for Birthdays, and they partner with academic institutions such as University of Nairobi, Alliance High School to do tree planting. And out of all this, he started an activity that he was driving 100 days tree for tree planting. And this he did with the former Minister of Environment, Keriako Tobiko. He has planted 1,000 mangroves on just one day, on that day. And furthermore, he has planted trees for a school, for an orphanage within his community. So that is it from our group. And I think there were quite very interesting innovations in engaging women and children in innovation. Thanks, Faye.
Thank you, Teresia. Really insightful discussions there. We have various people doing heavy engagements in restoration, and including youth, women, and children. Congratulations to all of you, and keep on doing the good work. That is really very helpful, and I hope that you are able to network, and we are going to continue like engaging each other in our activities. So group number 1, is there anybody that is ready to present, or do I proceed to group number 3?
Yes, Faith.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, hi everyone, my name is Karen Otieno, and I moderated for our group, and we discussed on the engagement activities that our various participants are using for engaging the youth, women, and children. So we had Jamila, quite an interesting one. She talked about the projects that they carry out in Garissa County, and they carry out most of the activities that they do to ensure that regreening is tree planting in schools, and also getting to engage children to like nurture the trees from the time they're planted to all the way to the time that they are maturing and growing up. And also as an activity that they do on ensuring regreening and also the engagement, they provide sanitary towels for girls in schools so that they can get to like keep them in school, and at the same time steer the activities of restoration. They also have tree planting curriculum activities in these schools. This helps to like give a good outline and also a good curriculum to like get to train the children and also to get to equip them and give them the knowledge. And their paramount objective or activity that they do is ensuring and promoting and also sensitizing on environmental conservation, which is something that is important, that is geared towards regreening. We also had Edward Mingich, who also talked about training of youth and women on tree planting activities, because he said that for them to be involved in tree planting, you have to like sensitize the women and the youth and also the children, and also get to train them so that they have the skills that they need, that they need to ensure this, that we steer towards regreening. Yeah, so that is what we discussed for our breakout session, breakout room. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. We'll proceed to group breakout room number 3. Breakout room number 3, we're talking about approaches that they think can be used to mobilize youth and women and children to participate in restoration. Who is presenting for group number 3? We could proceed to group number 4. Oh, Anne Ogola, I see your hand is up.
Hi, Faith. Sorry, it's group number 3. Cassandra, I'm presenting for group number 3, approaches for mobilization for women, youth, and children in restoration. In our group, we discussed the following approaches. One, targeting existing groups for mobilization. That was Lucy who talked about chamas as they are easier and faster. Secondly, Benedict, who is the Kajulu Forest chairman, talked about the use of online platforms, as a majority of youth are actually online. But someone posed about the challenge on data tariffs. Thirdly, Dennis talked about partnering with local media stations as a call for engagement and mobilization, especially in rural areas where radio is widespread and cheap and also covers a wide range. Fourth, someone talked about using political elites like MCAs to approaching their offices and actually asking them to support mobilization for the engagement of youth, women, and children in restoration. We talked about using chiefs as well, chiefs to support by giving strength to mobilization agenda, especially in villages. Someone also talked about setting up nurseries to inspire youth to participate in the mobilization, in restoration efforts rather. Doreen talked about conducting a needs assessment as that will inform the mobilization effort, especially drafting strategic plans and also program activities. Someone talked about using local champions to cascade the issues in restoration, as well as using sector working groups to help push on policy issues and ensure adoption. Someone also talked about strengthening CBOs and using them to add more value to restoration mobilization efforts. And lastly, we talked about using churches, especially since a majority of women attend churches to steer mobilization. Thank you. And over to you, Faith.
Thank you, Anne. Kindly let's proceed to group number 4. I see 2 hands are up. Bertrand Nyage, kindly proceed.
Hey, Anne is for group number 4.
Oh, Anne is from group number 4, not 3.
Yeah, group number 4.
Okay, so who is going to present for group number 3? Is it Bertrand Nyage?
The presentation for group number 3 is done. I think Bertrand is for group number 1. So maybe Anne can go ahead and then we go back to Bertrand, group number 1. Yeah. Or maybe finish 5 and then go back to 1.
Okay, thank you so much. Group number 4, we were discussing on the challenges to youth, women, and children involvement in restoration. So we just gave out the general women and children. And first, we said the challenges. First challenge was inadequate education and awareness creation. For instance, you find that within the education sector, there is not that much information being given out on issue on environmental restoration, inadequate contextual capacity building. We had insufficient income, that's finance, inadequate finance. We have insecure land tenure, gender constraints. For instance, you find that in most cultural norms, you find that women can't own land. Women and children and youth can't own land. The land owning is only left for men. So women don't have that much mandate or that much power to take part in environmental restoration. We had lack of two-way street between policy and implementation. Then we had negative attitude towards environmental management or environmental restoration. Lack of information that I have said, we had inadequate rainfall that is affecting both women, children, and youth. We had less attention to the environment. If we look at in our countries or in CSOs, in environmental sectors, in government sectors, most people nowadays focus on gender-based violence, sexual gender-based violence. They are forgetting the.
Welcome, Robert.
The main take, we are talking about opportunities in restoration. The main take was any activity that will focus on restoration and entrepreneurship aspect is a good opportunity to engage the youth, the opportunity to generate income while undertaking the restoration activities. So what we discussed is the people are involved in restoration, but at the end of the day, they do not have any income. So there are some group members who have started generating income. Like there is a member who is in the beekeeping in the semi-arid areas. There is also a member with BSF, and also they have a farm of leafy greens. Tobias talked about, there's someone who asked about aloe vera. So he connected the person with a consultant who is involved in it. So some of that, those are some of the things I picked, but you can add some.
It appears Faith has dropped off the call. Hello? Yeah. So which group hasn't presented? Oh, Faith is here. Okay, Faith. Welcome back.
Thank you, Laura. Robert, were you able to complete the presentation on group 5?
Yes, we did, and we just requested if you still have a few more points to add on what Robert gave us.
Unfortunately, I do not know what you finished on, but we mainly focused on the opportunities that are there for the youth, and we meant to engage on being introducing storytelling in schools, whereby the children are given assignments, also writing contests. They're given assignments to go and discuss with their caregivers, and they're able to like also write compositions which can be marked, and they can be graded and also gifted. We also talked about how public participation in knowing their rights, and in the case of Laikipia, they're using community land to put beehives there. And that is one opportunity that many people can leverage on in their different communities. And we also talked on the opportunity of doing restoration because it's our responsibility, and also to be able to like gain some income through looking at value chains that are green, and for example, aloe vera. And we were given some contacts to Salmora Salim Dua, who is an expert in that. I saw somebody mention it in the main room, so that will be very helpful if you would check them out. Yeah, that's all I could add to group 5. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. And Laura, would you like to go through the launch of the capacity building program?
Yes, Faith. Thank you very, very much. And thank you to everyone for all your time and for waiting until the end. So I just wanted to talk about a couple of things that we're launching. So first of all, I think you've already seen it from the publicity materials. We are, like I mentioned before when I was doing the presentation about the Regreening Africa program, this is a program that's ending next year. And this is the last year of its implementation. It's been implemented for 5 years. And so this action group, the Youth and Women Inclusion in Restoration Action Group, was born out of the conference last year, and Regreening has been supporting this action group. But now that it's coming to an end, we are transitioning into something really, really exciting. And we have great things. I'm really excited about it, and there are great things coming ahead. So we're going to be launching a youth. It's been a Youth and Women Inclusion in Restoration Action Group, but now we have noted that it's mostly youth who are involved. But that does not exclude women. So we want to launch, we're in the process, or rather we are coming up with a youth restoration network where women are also welcome as well. So it's the purpose of this network is to kind of provide a platform for capacity building, for mentoring, for sharing experiences among the youth who are engaged in restoration in Kenya, specifically, but also around the world. I think it's always good to learn and from other opportunities, but it's mainly Kenya focused. And this is, I think Don has shared the, the sign up form on the chat. So kindly look at it. So this network will also be a space to link with various stakeholders, such as the private sector, who could potentially fund projects. And that's why I mentioned that we're having a couple of trainings. So one of the main things that this network is going to do is capacity building. And with that regard, we also have another program that will be part of this network, will be accessible to mainly members of this network. That's a capacity building program for youth, for women, and also faith actors who are involved in restoration. And some of the things which are going to be taught there is topics such as resource mobilization. We've already started doing that. We did several trainings this year and we'll continue. Even the finance webinar that we had on the 11th, I think it was the 11th of this month, was just in line with the resource mobilization, showcasing the opportunities that are there. About social media, we're going to train about storytelling, blogging. One of the things that we saw, it's important to for youth and for women and faith actors to learn is how to showcase the work that they're doing so that they can even get more funding and more finances for their projects. We're going to teach about restoration monitoring and documentation using the Regreening Africa app, project management, and several other things, video taking, blogging. So there'll be an opportunity to also suggest other topics that you could be trained on. So basically, this is a program that you're working to start next year in January 2023. And it's basically going to be a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of hours during the week, mostly online, but we're also seeing how we can get funding to do physical trainings. So look out for that. And I think it's just important to notice that one of the most important criteria for being able to access this is just being a member of this network. So those are just some of the benefits. So kindly sign up to join the network. A form has just been shared in the chat. So thank you so much, Faith.
Thank you, Laura. This is a call to everybody to join the Youth Restoration Network. This is a chance and opportunity for your capacity to be strengthened, and we all need that extra strength. So please sign up. With that, we are coming to the end of our today's webinar. Thank you so much to all the speakers for sharing the lessons learned in children, youth, and women engagement in restoration and highlighting opportunities with us. Thank you to all the participants for joining us and for asking questions. Thank you to the members of African Rising for seeing that you are representing Africa here. And thank you to all our volunteers. As we mentioned earlier, this is our second webinar in a series of pre-conference thematic webinars, and we will be sharing with you our other engagements. So we hope to share links with you in the future. I see Laura's hand is up. Kindly, Laura, unmute.
Yes, Faith, I just wanted to remind you, just before we go, maybe we could, just before we end, we could take a picture.
Yes, kindly guys, you can start your videos and we could take a picture. And don't forget to smile.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure to have you with the engagement.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been great.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye. And we'll share the presentations. All your questions will be answered. We have taken note of them. We put them on a Google Doc and the presenters will answer them.